You know that feeling when you're reading business advice and it just feels so safe, so theoretical? Well, if you've ever felt that way, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're about to break down a blueprint for wealth that basically throws the entire rulebook out the window and replaces it with some pretty brutal honesty. And look, that's not just me hyping it up. It's a promise, straight from the author. We're not talking about small incremental growth or, playing it safe. This is all about a complete and total rewiring of your mindset for high-stakes success. The source for all this today is Your First 100 Million by Daniel S. Pena, Sr. But honestly, calling it a how-to guide doesn't really cut it. It's much more like a battle manual for anyone who wants to play in the world of extreme wealth creation. And that right there, that's Peña's completely unfiltered opinion on most other business books. He argues they just give you checklists and theories, but they totally fail to prepare you for the real fight, which, according to him, is almost 100% mental. So what is the fundamental difference, really? Well, think of it this way. Conventional wisdom gives you the mechanics, the checklists, the theories. Peña's approach, what he calls the quantum leap, is all about forging your mind and spirit for what he calls executive battle. It's not about learning what to do, it's about transforming into the person you have to be to succeed at this level. And to really get the method, you kind of have to understand the man. Peña isn't coaching from some sterile office park. No, he runs his super intense seminars from his 15th century home, Guthrie Castle in Scotland. Right away, that should tell you you're not dealing with your average business mentor. He's a self-proclaimed controversial figure. As he puts it, success turned the label from crazy into eccentric, and it's a journey he wears like a badge of honor, basically arguing that unconventional methods are what get you those extraordinary results. So this all centers on his core methodology, the Quantum Leap Advantage, or QLA, and it's called a quantum leap for a reason. It's not about small, steady steps. It's a framework he's honed over 40 years, designed to help you bypass that slow, painful climb and achieve insane, exponential growth, even if you're starting with nothing but an idea. And at the very heart of the QLA is a philosophy that feels, let's be honest, almost taboo today. His advice? Actively seek an unfair advantage. Forget this idea of a level playing field. This is all about strategically engineering the conditions, your team, your financing, your knowledge, so that everything is overwhelmingly in your favor before the game even starts. And the proof is right there in the numbers. Using his own QLA principles, Peña took an energy company from a starting investment of just $820 and grew it to a $400 million company in only 8 years. That's the kind of exponential growth he is talking about. So that's really the central question the book poses. How in the world did he do it? It promises a direct download of the strategies from someone who has actually lived this kind of extreme success. So let's look at one of the key pillars of how he says it's done. One of the very first principles of the QLA is that you do not have to learn everything the hard way. Why would you? Peña calls it making a quantum leap to wisdom, and it's all about leveraging the incredible power of mentors. In fact, he dedicates the book to his own 3 key mentors, saying each of them gave him a critical weapon for his arsenal. From a guy named Costa Gratsos, he learned how to navigate the shark-infested waters of big business. From Jim Newman, the man who actually coined the term comfort zone, he learned how to escape it. And from an oil man named Jerry Orman, he learned how to survive and even prosper in a really rough industry. So what's it like to actually receive this information? Well, a seminar attendee described it perfectly. The style is direct, it's hard-hitting, and it is in your face. There is absolutely no sugarcoating here. And the book is very, very clear about who this is not for. It isn't for the touchy-feely. It is not designed to stroke your self-esteem or make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It's designed to prepare you for a battle, plain and simple. So what's the core promise? It's to deliver the unvarnished truth. It's a manual on how you need to think, feel, and train yourself to make the entire corporate and financial system work for you, instead of you working for them. Ultimately, the entire philosophy just boils down to this simple call to action. The book argues that conventional wisdom prepares you to be just another cog in someone else's machine. This approach, though, it's about giving you the mental tools to go out and build your own machine. So after all the brutal honesty, the real question isn't just what you'll build, but whether you're willing to become the person who can build it. Are you ready? All right, let's just jump right in. You know that feeling when you're reading business advice and it just feels so safe, so theoretical? Well, if you've ever felt that way, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're about to break down a blueprint for wealth that basically throws the entire rulebook out the window and replaces it with some pretty brutal honesty. And look, that's not just me hyping it up. It's a promise, straight from the author. We're not talking about small incremental growth or, playing it safe. This is all about a complete and total rewiring of your mindset for high-stakes success. The source for all this today is Your First 100 Million by Daniel S. Peña, Sr. But honestly, calling it a how-to guide doesn't really cut it. It's much more like a battle manual for anyone who wants to play in the world of extreme wealth creation. And that right there, that's Peña's completely unfiltered opinion on most other business books. He argues they just give you checklists and theories, but they totally fail to prepare you for the real fight, which, according to him, is almost 100% mental. So what is the fundamental difference, really? Well, think of it this way. Conventional wisdom gives you the mechanics, the checklists, the theories. Peña's approach, what he calls the quantum leap, is all about forging your mind and spirit for what he calls executive battle. It's not about learning what to do, it's about transforming into the person you have to be to succeed at this level. And to really get the method, you kind of have to understand the man. Peña isn't coaching from some sterile office park. No, he runs his super intense seminars from his 15th century home, Guthrie Castle in Scotland. Right away, that should tell you you're not dealing with your average business mentor. He's a self-proclaimed controversial figure. As he puts it, success turned the label from crazy into eccentric, and it's a journey he wears like a badge of honor, basically arguing that unconventional methods are what get you those extraordinary results. So this all centers on his core methodology, the Quantum Leap Advantage, or QLA, and it's called a quantum leap for a reason. It's not about small, steady steps. It's a framework he's honed over 40 years, designed to help you bypass that slow, painful climb and achieve insane, exponential growth, even if you're starting with nothing but an idea. And at the very heart of the QLA is a philosophy that feels, let's be honest, almost taboo today. His advice? Actively seek an unfair advantage. Forget this idea of a level playing field. This is all about strategically engineering the conditions, your team, your financing, your knowledge, so that everything is overwhelmingly in your favor before the game even starts. And the proof is right there in the numbers. Using his own QLA principles, Peña took an energy company from a starting investment of just $820 and grew it to a $400 million company in only 8 years. That's the kind of exponential growth he is talking about. So that's really the central question the book poses. How in the world did he do it? It promises a direct download of the strategies from someone who has actually lived this kind of extreme success. So let's look at one of the key pillars of how he says it's done. One of the very first principles of the QLA is that you do not have to learn everything the hard way. Why would you? Peña calls it making a quantum leap to wisdom, and it's all about leveraging the incredible power of mentors. In fact, he dedicates the book to his own 3 key mentors, saying each of them gave him a critical weapon for his arsenal. From a guy named Costa Gratsos, he learned how to navigate the shark-infested waters of big business. From Jim Newman, the man who actually coined the term comfort zone, he learned how to escape it. And from an oil man named Jerry Orman, he learned how to survive and even prosper in a really rough industry. So what's it like to actually receive this information? Well, a seminar attendee described it perfectly. The style is direct, it's hard-hitting, and it is in your face. There is absolutely no sugarcoating here. And the book is very, very clear about who this is not for. It isn't for the touchy-feely. It is not designed to stroke your self-esteem or make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It's designed to prepare you for a battle, plain and simple. So what's the core promise? It's to deliver the unvarnished truth. It's a manual on how you need to think, feel, and train yourself to make the entire corporate and financial system work for you, instead of you working for them. Ultimately, the entire philosophy just boils down to this simple call to action. The book argues that conventional wisdom prepares you to be just another cog in someone else's machine. This approach, though, it's about giving you the mental tools to go out and build your own machine. So after all the brutal honesty, the real question isn't just what you'll build, but whether you're willing to become the person who can build it. Are you ready?
Okay, get ready for one of the most insane transformation stories you've ever heard. We're diving into Chapter 2 of Daniel Peña's book, Your First 100 Million. And trust me, it's a wild ride that starts in the tough streets of East LA and somehow ends Well, somewhere you would never, ever expect. It ends right here, at Guthrie Castle in Scotland. Yeah, a real 15th century castle. We're talking 55 rooms, a massive stone tower, the whole 9 yards, sitting on 156 acres. So this is the destination, but it's where he started that makes this whole story just unbelievable. And this is where it all began. Not in some fancy business school, but in the barrio, a place where, as Pena himself says, you learned street-level survival. The future didn't look too bright. I mean, the contrast between this and a Scottish castle couldn't be more extreme. So that's the big question, right? How on earth does somebody make that leap? How do you bridge a gap that wide? It sounds completely impossible, but it happened. So let's break down exactly how he did it. First up, the early years. Now, you might think Peña's journey started with some grand vision or ambition, but really it was the total opposite. His early life was pretty much defined by chaos and, well, a complete lack of direction. I mean, just look at this timeline. The pattern is pretty obvious, right? He gets booted from high school right before he's supposed to graduate. He bounces around a few colleges and flunks out of them. By 1966, he's got nothing going on, so he enlists in the army. It probably felt like a last resort, but it ended up being the first real step toward everything. And this was the turning point. The army took this, in his words, aimless kid, and basically hammered him into a rapidly maturing adult. You see, for the very first time, he was in a world where discipline and taking responsibility weren't just good ideas, they were mandatory. You needed them to survive and succeed. It was the structure he'd never had, and it absolutely changed him. Okay, next section, the power of expectation. So after the army, Peña jumps into the business world, and now he's got this new weapon, discipline. But it's right here that he learns his next huge lesson, one that would pretty much define his entire career. So picture this, it's 1971. He gets a job in real estate. He's totally new, doesn't know the ropes, has no idea what's normal, and his boss gives him this one simple instruction, an instruction with an absurdly high expectation. He says, don't just try hard, sell every single person who walks in here. So what happens? He hits this number, a 94.6% closing rate. As Peña explains it, he just didn't know any better. He was so new to the game, he took that impossible expectation literally and came unbelievably close to hitting it. The lesson here was huge. What you achieve is often just a mirror of what you expect to achieve. Now that early win really lit a fire under him, but his story doesn't just climb a steady ladder. Oh no. Instead, it takes a sharp, crazy turn into the world of international oil, mercenaries, and a plot that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a movie. Yeah, you heard that right. Through a mentor, Peña lands in the middle of a real-life plot to invade Haiti and take down the dictator Baby Doc Duvalier. And look at the backers. You couldn't make this up. The CIA, Mobil Oil, and the Vatican all in on it together. And Peña, with his military intelligence background, they put him in charge of the whole thing. 300 mercenaries, helicopter gunships, the works. But right when things are about to kick off, the whole plan just implodes. In a super tense meeting, the CIA guy just says, "Nope, we're shutting it down." And the room explodes into chaos. The mercenaries jump up, pull their guns, the CIA agents pull theirs. Peña gets shoved under a table just as his mentor walks in, cool as a cucumber, and says, "Looks like I got here just in time for the excitement." Insane. So the coup? It never happened. But out of that completely chaotic, dangerous experience, Peña pulled out a golden rule for business. He realized that inside chaos, there is massive opportunity. If you can be the one to walk into a crazy, messy industry and create order, you can make a fortune. So, armed with this brand new philosophy, Peña is ready to go build his own empire. There's just one tiny problem. He's unemployed and basically broke. So how do you turn a cool lesson into an actual company with no money? This is how much of his own cash he had to start his oil company, Great Western Development Corporation. Not $820,000. $820. He was working out of his baby son's bedroom with a spare phone line and a fax machine he was leasing. By any normal standard, he had absolutely nothing. So how did he do it? With a concept he lives by, something he calls OPM, other people's money. The whole idea is to use other people's resources, their money, sure, but also their reputation, their connections, to do things you could never do on your own. It's about thinking way, way bigger than your own wallet. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Look at the left column, with my money. You've got $820 and zero track record. The result? No business. But now look at the right. By using OPM, by partnering with an established company, he instantly borrowed their credibility. And the result? $50 million in contracts. He literally used perception to create a new reality. But then he took this idea and pushed it to its most extreme logical conclusion. He knew that to play with the big dogs on Wall Street, he had to look like he didn't need them at all. The best way to show someone you don't need their money? You buy something ridiculously extravagant, like a medieval castle you can't actually afford. And that brings us full circle. The castle wasn't just a house, it was a weapon. It was the ultimate power move, creating a perception of such massive success that Wall Street started chasing him. By acting like he didn't need anyone, suddenly everyone wanted to be in business with him. The kid from the barrio, using discipline, sky-high expectations, and the mastery of perception, had become the lord of the castle. Look, Peña's story is obviously extreme, but the principle behind it is universal. And it leaves us with a really powerful question. What is your castle? What's that goal in your life that seems totally impossible right now? And more importantly, what perception could you start building today to make that impossible goal feel inevitable? All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a sledgehammer to one of the biggest things holding people back from massive success, all based on Chapter 3 of Daniel Peña's book, Your First 100 Million. We're talking about conventional wisdom, and why Peña calls it, well, the ultimate crutch for losers. And boom, this quote just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? Peña isn't just suggesting you work a little harder. He's telling you to throw out the entire rulebook, the usual way of doing things. He sees common sense not as a helpful guide, but as a trap that guarantees you get the same mediocre results as everybody else. This is the bedrock of his whole philosophy. So what exactly is this crutch he's talking about? Well, Peña says it's the very advice we're spoon-fed our entire lives. It's all that collective wisdom that promises to keep you safe, but really just guarantees you'll be average. Yeah, he pulls no punches. He actually compares conventional wisdom to a drug, the opium of the people. His point is that from the moment we're born, society starts injecting us with these safe ideas. And the goal isn't really to help us thrive, it's to keep us predictable, manageable, and, well, forgotten. It's a system designed to numb the very ambition you need for huge success. Peña calls these fortune cookie proverbs. You've heard them all, right? Better safe than sorry. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. They sound so wise, but he argues they're just mental anesthetics. They're designed to make you cautious and satisfied, which are the mortal enemies of the kind of bold, risky action that leads to anything monumental. And here's the kicker. Think about it. All the great visionaries in history, from Columbus to Henry Ford to the Wright brothers, they all succeeded by flying directly in the face of what everyone else thought was common sense or just plain impossible. They didn't just ignore conventional wisdom, they declared war on it. Okay, so if the old foundation is rotten, you can't just patch it up. You have to tear it down and build a new one. This next part is all about creating a completely new mental framework from scratch. This is brick number 1 for your new foundation. There are no rules. What Peña means is, to achieve something spectacular, you can't just bend the old rules. You have to act like they don't even exist. Every rule you accept is just another wall, limiting how you think. You're basically choosing to play inside a tiny box that someone else built for you. And this image just nails it, because it shows you where the real fight is. It's not out there with the competition. It's in here. All those years of hearing you can't do that or be realistic have built a prison inside your own head. And according to Peña, breaking out of that prison is the first and most important battle you have to win. Just think about Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile. For forever, everyone just knew it was physically impossible for a human to run that fast. Then, on May 6, 1954, he did it. And what happened? The very next month, someone else did it too. And soon, runners all over the world were doing it. The barrier was never physical, it was purely mental. Once one person shattered it, the floodgates just flew open for everyone else. Now, once you start breaking your own rules and shattering those mental barriers, you're going to get some pushback. And Peña has a very direct term for the people who create that resistance. Before you get offended, realize this isn't just a random insult. It's a functional definition. In Peña's world, a moron is anyone, no matter how smart they are or how much they love you, whose advice or attitude would hold you back and shrink your vision. And you'll find them everywhere. I mean, you pay accountants and lawyers for their professional advice, right? But their job is to keep you in a safe, conventional, low-risk box. And what about your family? They love you, of course, but their advice often comes from a place of fear. They want to keep you safe, which is absolute poison if you're trying to achieve quantum leap growth. So this needs to become your mantra. Seriously. According to Peña, it's not enough to just disagree with them. You have to become totally deaf to them. You have to operate with this deep, unwavering belief that their small-minded perception of what's possible is completely and totally irrelevant to your reality. So we've rejected the old ways, and we've learned to ignore the naysayers. What do we replace all that with? Let's dive into the actual mindset you need to build. This is Peña's ultimate tool for just cutting through indecision. Whenever you're agonizing over some business decision, just ask yourself this one simple question. The answer is almost always no. I mean, what's the real worst-case scenario? You lose some money? You get embarrassed? You can recover from that. This question puts the real stakes in perspective and frees you up to just stop stressing and act. This pretty much captures the essence of a high performer. They don't get stuck in analysis paralysis, waiting for 100% of the information. They act with total conviction based on what they know right now. Peña's motto, "I may be wrong, but I am never in doubt," means a good plan you execute today is infinitely better than a perfect plan that you never get around to starting. And passion is totally non-negotiable. Peña draws a really clear line in the sand here. A lot of people, even successful ones, get to a certain point and they start playing defense. They get scared of losing what they've built. But a true high performer, they are always on offense. They are obsessed with growth and conquest. They play to win, not just to avoid losing. And that passion demands total, all-in commitment. Super success is not a part-time hobby or something you do when you feel like it. It becomes your obsession. It demands your focus day and night. And yeah, it requires sacrifice. You have to give up other things, hobbies, comforts, because your vision is calling you, and it demands your full attention. So let's tie all this together. You've torn down your old limiting beliefs. You've started to build a new high-performer mindset. What's the final step? How do you start? Peña's advice is dead simple. Just go. Right now, pick one single decision you've been putting off because of fear or uncertainty, and just make it. That one action creates momentum, and success feeds on itself. Action builds confidence, and that confidence fuels more action. It's a feedback loop that once you get it started can become an absolutely unstoppable force. And we'll end on this powerful idea. This is really the ultimate takeaway. Stop listening to other people's predictions, stop following the worn-out maps of conventional wisdom, and start drawing your own. The future isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you build, one decisive action at a time. 4 of Daniel S. Peña's pretty intense book, Your First 100 Million. The whole chapter is called Getting Comfortable with High Performance, and it's built on this wild idea. You have to start acting like a massive success long before the money and the fame ever show up. You know, this quote right here gets to the heart of it. We spend our whole lives being told to fear failure, right? But Peña flips that completely on its head. He says the real thing that should scare you is success. It's the fear of who you'll have to become, the new pressures, the new life. And his advice? Don't wait. Start preparing for that life right now, today. So, what is the single biggest thing holding you back from what Peña calls super success? It's not the economy. It's not your competition. Nope. It's that invisible little box you live in, your comfort zone. And look, this isn't just some motivational poster slogan. Peña actually got this idea from his mentor, a behavioral scientist named Jim Newman. The comfort zone is a real, measurable psychological boundary. And the rule couldn't be simpler. If you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to push against that boundary, constantly. Wow. I mean, Peña does not pull his punches. He calls the comfort zone a coffin. Think about that. He sees it as this cozy little prison you build for yourself, a place where all your big dreams just go to die. It's a brutal metaphor, but it really makes you feel the urgency of breaking out, doesn't it? And this is so key to understand. Staying still isn't a safe option. The opposite of growth isn't just staying the same, it's decay. If you decide to stay inside that cozy fence, you're actively choosing a life of boredom, anxiety, and just watching your potential wither away. Okay, so pointing out the problem is one thing, but how do you actually start tearing down those walls? Well, Pena gives us two really powerful tools to systematically smash your comfort zone: practice and visualization. This little thought experiment is called the plank test, and it's absolutely brilliant. It shows how your reason why completely changes your comfort zone. See, the task, walking across a plank, it never changes, but when the stakes are high enough, when it's something you care about more than anything, fear just becomes irrelevant. You just do it. So you have to ask yourself, is your why powerful enough to make you walk that plank?
The second tool is visualization, and this quote says it all. I mean, it's just common sense, right? You can't possibly get somewhere if you don't even know where you're going. You have to give your brain a super clear, high-definition target to aim for.
And we're not talking about just daydreaming here. This is about intense, detailed mental rehearsal. Think about it. When JFK said we go to the moon, he had no idea how they'd do it, he just had the vision. Tiger Woods had already won the Masters in his mind thousands of times before he ever did it in real life. And Pena, he imagined his future office with so much clarity that when he finally walked into it, it felt like he was just coming home. That's the level you need to be at.
All right, so you're practicing, you're visualizing, but what's the actual mental software you need to be running every day? For that, Pena shares his personal operating system, the 5 credos that he has lived by since the 70s.
You should really burn these into your brain. Number 1, today's reality was just a dream yesterday. 2, you have to see your own success with total clarity right now. 3, rehearse everything in your mind until it's automatic. 4, just act like you have no limits, and you'll be amazed to find out how few you actually have. And 5, fuel everything with enthusiasm, which, by the way, Pena notes comes from a Greek word meaning the God within. Pretty powerful stuff. Now, all this internal work is absolutely critical, but Pena is clear, you can't do it all by yourself in a dark room. You need help. But, and this is a big but, he makes a really sharp and honestly pretty controversial distinction between two kinds of guides, mentors and masterminds. And yeah, his take here is not what you usually hear. For Pena, having a mentor is non-negotiable. It's a quantum leap forward. But mastermind groups? He is extremely skeptical. He thinks they often just lead to groupthink and average results, and he points out that the real titans of industry, the lone hunters, they ultimately bet on themselves, not on a committee. He's not saying they never work, but listen to this checklist he lays out. The bar is insanely high. Everyone has to be at a similar level, bring different skills to the table, and, this is the killer, you have to be ruthless enough to walk away the second you feel like you're not growing anymore. It's such a demanding formula that for him, it almost never works out. Finding a great mentor, on the other hand, is much more straightforward. The roles are simple, but really profound. Find someone who's already done what you want to do, but on a scale that honestly kind of scares you. And then, the key is to build a real relationship, one built on genuine respect, not just asking for favors. So, if you boil all of Chapter 4 down to one thing, what is it? It's this. Success isn't something that just happens to you, it's a destination. And you have to consciously prepare for your arrival. The whole goal is to practice being a high performer so relentlessly that when success finally shows up, it doesn't feel weird or scary. It feels normal. It feels like coming home. So I'll just leave you with that question. It's one thing to say you want to be successful. It is a completely different thing to start living as if you already are. So what is one thing, just one action, you can do today to start preparing for your arrival?
From Chapter 5 of Daniel S. Peña's book, Your First 100 Million. It's a philosophy that, honestly, it flips everything you think you know about success right on its head. And it all starts with one single powerful idea.
So there it is. This is the core of the whole thing. Peña's argument is that you don't just wait for success to happen, you have to manufacture the illusion of it first. It's a bold move, right? Basically, project the reality you want so convincingly that the world has no choice but to catch up.
So what does this actually mean in practice? Well, according to Pena, perception isn't just some nice side effect of being successful. No, it's the engine that actually drives it. And this isn't about being a liar, it's about being a leader. It's about shaping what everyone believes, from investors to your competitors, so they see the future you're building as completely inevitable.
Okay, so how do you actually do this? How does it work? Well, it all kicks off with you, with your personal brand.
Pena paints this incredibly stark picture here. He argues that in a split second, people make a judgment call that can literally define your destiny. You know, on one side, you've got the person who projects, in his own words, a goofy, worthless doofus. And on the other, you have a persona that screams power and success before a single word is even spoken.
And here's the part that really messes with your head. You don't wait until you've made millions to buy that Savile Row suit. You do it before. Pena says he dressed this way long before he was successful. His whole goal was to walk into a room and make people feel that their lives were about to change just because he showed up.
But listen, it's about way more than just the suit. Pena pushes for a complete projection of power. That means what he calls eat your lunch eye contact, looking at someone like you're a battleship about to dock. It means intimidating people, making them wonder why you'd even need their money. And the ultimate power move? No business cards. The message it sends is crystal clear. Have your secretary call my office. They'll know where to find me.
Okay, so that's you, the individual. But this entire philosophy, it scales up big time. So let's look at how you apply these exact same principles to an entire company.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking right now, and it's a question Pena asks directly in his book. Is this all just, deception?
And Pena's answer is completely 100% unapologetic. Yep. He argues that a leader's job is to pump so much credibility into the company's image, making it appear not just as large as it is, but a hell of a lot bigger. Let's get specific and look at how he actually did this with his own company, Great Western Resources. He paid dividends from day one, even though he had no earnings, just to create the perception of being a super stable income stock. He also announced this major partnership, making it sound like a huge deal between equals, when in reality, his company was just him, operating out of his kid's bedroom. And the result? Did it work? Oh yeah, it worked. The perception became a financial reality. The stock price nearly doubled in just 4 months because the big income funds, believing the illusion, they all bought in. The market reacted to the perception, not the truth on the ground. And hey, this isn't just for some startup in a kid's bedroom. Pena points to the 2008 Beijing Olympics as a massive real-world example. To fight its reputation for pollution, the Chinese government literally relocated factories and ordered cars off the road. For just a few weeks, they manufactured the perception of a clean, modern city for the entire world to see. And you know what? That perception became the reality that millions of people took home with them. So this all leads to the grand finale, the ultimate goal of the whole strategy, the point where the perception you've so carefully built becomes so powerful, it actually creates your new reality. For Pena, the ultimate expression of this, the absolute peak of this philosophy, was his decision to buy Guthrie Castle in Scotland. This was something he even admits he could barely afford, but it was his most audacious move to create a reality-altering perception.
So here's how the strategy worked. He'd show up to viewings in a chauffeur-driven car, making sure everyone saw him as a serious buyer with deep pockets. This perception allowed him to negotiate from a position of pure strength. And then, once he got the castle, it became this huge statement piece. As Pena himself puts it, as soon as Wall Street realized I didn't need their help, I got it. The perception of not needing them was exactly what made them want in.
And this, right here, is the endgame. When you successfully build this perception, the whole dynamic flips. You stop chasing deals. Instead, you become a magnet for opportunity. The perception of success becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, attracting the very resources you need to make it all real.
But hold on a second. Before you run out and rent a Rolls-Royce for your next meeting, there is a huge, critical, grounding warning that comes attached to this entire philosophy. The most crucial point is this. Illusion is a tool, not a substitute for substance. Creating a powerful perception, that gets you in the door. It wins you the meeting. It gets you the initial investment. But once you are inside that room, you absolutely have to perform. And this is Pena's final and maybe most vital warning. This whole structure, this entire facade, it rests on your ability to actually deliver on the promise your perception makes. Because if you can't back up the grand illusion with real results, it all comes crashing down. The perception has to become reality, or it's completely worthless.
And that really leaves us with the final question. For you, it's not if you should build a perception, but what kind of perception you should build. Are you crafting an image of a future that you truly have the grit and the ability to achieve? Because that, right there, that's the real challenge.
Today we are diving deep into Chapter 6 of Dan Peña's book, Your First 100 Million. We're going to break down his famously aggressive method for building what he calls a dream team, the kind of team that can actually achieve a quantum leap to super success. You know, Pena kicks things off with this powerful idea from Machiavelli for a really good reason. Building your team isn't just another task to check off your list. He argues it is the ultimate test of your intelligence as a leader. Who you choose to surround yourself with, well, that defines absolutely everything. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the crucial mindset shift you have to make. Then we'll get into the practical steps, putting together your board, hiring the right professionals, and finding your key partners. And finally, we'll look at what it really takes to lead this elite team. Okay, so the very first step before you even think about hiring anyone is to accept a fundamental truth. No matter how talented or driven you are, you absolutely positively cannot do it alone. Your vision is just way too big for your own two hands. This slide really gets to the heart of the conflict every founder faces. Over on the left, you've got the pride of authorship. You know, that instinct to protect your baby. Pena says this is the single biggest killer of promising companies. You have to be willing to trade that for the reality on the right. You must share control if you want to achieve massive growth. Peña's entire model for super success really boils down to two powerful levers. The first is what he calls OPM, or other people's money. But the second, and that's our focus today, is simply other people. These are the individuals who will form your dream team, the actual engine of your company's growth. Okay, now for the first practical step. And honestly, this is where most founders get it completely backward. You don't start by hiring a salesperson or an engineer. According to Peña, you build your board of directors before you hire anyone else. I know what you're probably thinking, exactly what's on this slide. A board for my tiny startup? It feels way too early, right? Well, the answer is an emphatic no. Like Pena says, you wouldn't start a baseball game without fielding every position first. You have to fill the positions on the field before the game even starts. And look, this is not a board of your buddies. You're hunting for heavyweights. The goal here is to recruit retired, high-profile executives who bring instant credibility. Think a strong chairman who's like your anchor tenant, along with seasoned financial experts like a retired investment banker or a former Big Four partner. They become the core of your company's perceived value. This quote, wow, it just perfectly captures the kind of mindset you need. Your board has to be lawsuit aware. In the high-stakes world Pena operates in, litigation isn't just a risk to avoid, it's a legitimate business tool. And if that whole idea makes you uncomfortable, he basically says this strategy might not be for you. So how in the world do you pay these titans of industry? Well, here's the kicker. You don't. At least not at first. You pitch them on the mission, on the challenge, on the chance to contribute their wisdom. And only later, almost like an afterthought, do you offer each director between 2 and 5% of the company's equity. The initial hook has to be the challenge, not the paycheck. So, with your board established, you now have a foundation of serious credibility, and you're going to leverage that credibility to build the next layer of your dream team, retaining world-class external professionals. Listen, this part is absolutely non-negotiable. You do not hire your cousin who's a CPA. You don't hire the local law firm down the street. From day one, you align yourself with the power and reputation of the best in the business. We're talking a Big Four accounting firm and a top-tier law firm. This just signals to the entire world that you are serious. And you don't just go and hire them. Oh no, you make them compete for your business. You run what Pena calls a beauty contest. You craft a bold mission statement. You interview all of them. You let them know they're competing, and then you make your final choice based on who gives you the best deal in writing. Now, when you're negotiating, these are the magic words to use. Value-added fees and success-oriented fees. This kind of structure links their payment directly to your success. They only get paid in full when you close deals. It perfectly aligns everyone's interests. All right, now here is a brilliant and maybe a little bit subversive strategy. You find a mole. This is a young, hungry, ambitious person inside your new accounting or law firm. You cultivate a relationship with them, and over time, their allegiance starts to shift from their employer to you, their real client. They start finding ways to enable what you want to do, instead of just telling you all the reasons you can't. Okay, so let's recap. With your board and your external powerhouses in place, you are now casting a massive shadow of credibility. And you can leverage that to attract your internal leaders, the partners and key staff who are going to be fighting in the trenches right there with you. When it comes to hiring these people, you gotta forget the polished resume. You're looking for warriors, people who have actually done deals and have fought in the trenches. You need a can-do attitude, a real appetite for adventure, and this is critical, people who are so ambitious they actually want your job. So how do you actually find these people? Well, Pena recommends something he calls the doofus test. You intentionally schedule a key meeting on, say, a Saturday night or during a holiday just to see how they react. It's a really simple pressure test, but it separates those with a 9-to-5 mentality from those who have total commitment. And if you want to know how extreme this gets, listen to this. This is a real example from the book. A young man was asked to a meeting that conflicted with his own wedding. He never said a word about it. He just went. That's the bar. That is the level of dedication we're talking about in this model. So you've done it. You have assembled an absolute team of killers. Your board is powerful, your advisors are top tier, and your staff is insanely committed. But they need a leader. And that responsibility, that falls on you and you alone. You know, this gets to the core of Peña's leadership philosophy. It's that action and having a clear, bold vision, that's everything. People will follow a leader they might see as a little bit mad, as long as that person has a crystal clear purpose. A nice guy with a vague plan, as he puts it, inspires absolutely no one. And as the leader, your job is not to get stuck in the office micromanaging everything. You have 3 real jobs, and they are all external. Number 1, kissing frogs. That's constantly networking. 2, finding deals. Always be looking for growth opportunities. And 3, raising OPM, securing the capital to make it all happen. So, the methodology is right there. It's clear. Build a team of experts and warriors from the very top down. But at the end of the day, the final, most important question comes right back to you. Because a dream team is only as strong as its leader. You've got the playbook. Are you ready to lead?
All right, today we are tearing into Chapter 7 of Dan Peña's legendary playbook, Your First 100 Million. And this chapter, wow, it lays out the absolutely brutal 11-step process he uses to make massive deals. And he doesn't just talk about it. He gives us a real-world case study of one of his biggest acquisitions. So, this isn't some classroom theory. This is a front-row seat to high-stakes, high-pressure execution.
Peña kicks things off with this classic line, and it really sets the whole tone, doesn't it? This isn't just about being comfortable on a plane. It's a whole philosophy. It means you have to physically put yourself in the places where opportunity happens. And believe it or not, the biggest deal of his life started, you guessed it, right there, in first class. So picture this. The year is 1986. Dan Peña's company, Great Western Resources, is on the prowl for a huge, game-changing acquisition. But the breakthrough they need? It doesn't come from some fancy investment banker or a thick research report. Nope. It comes from a simple, overheard conversation on a flight from Houston to Denver.
And that's the key right there, the absolute simplicity of it. Peña's CFO, a guy named Charlie Soliday, was just paying attention. He overhears an executive casually mention that a Canadian energy company, Bow Valley, is being forced by its bankers to sell off its U.S. assets. A tiny little crack in the wall, just an offhand comment, and bam, a massive window of opportunity just flew wide open.
And this, right here, shows you exactly why Great Western was ready to jump through that window when nobody else was. See, in '86, the oil industry was in a total freefall. The price per barrel had crashed from $28 to less than 10. So what was everyone else doing? The herd was digging in, basically assuming the fetal position, just trying to survive. But Peña's strategy was the polar opposite. He was actively hunting in what he called the bone-filled desert of distressed energy companies. He was looking for exactly this kind of deal.
So the big question is, how do you get from a whispered conversation on a plane to a massive company-defining acquisition? Well, Peña argues it is not about luck. It's a system. It's a repeatable process. And this whole Bow Valley saga, it's the real-world case study for his 11-step framework, a literal battle plan for what he loves to call a minnow swallowing a whale.
Okay, so the first phase of this framework is all about preparing the battlefield. This covers steps 1 through 3. And this part isn't about getting hyped up or being optimistic. It's about being brutally analytical. You define the idea, and then you do everything in your power to kill it through relentless investigation.
And this is such a critical distinction in Peña's method. You don't investigate to prove yourself right, to confirm that you found a great deal. No. You investigate to find the fatal flaw. You're actively looking for the landmines, the problems, the red flags that give you a concrete reason to walk away. You are literally trying to kill your own deal.
And that brings us to the ultimate test of discipline, right? When you're going through your due diligence, how many of these fatal flaws, these red flags, are you willing to put up with before you just pull the plug?
Just 1. That's it. That's the rule. Not 2, not, well, maybe we can work around it. The very first time you hit a major roadblock or you don't get a straight answer, the deal is dead. And your action has to be just as ruthless. You exit immediately. There's no waffling, no agonizing over it. As Pena loves to say, quoting Warren Buffett, there is no thumb sucking. That tiny little issue you find today can absolutely explode in your face later on, so you cut it loose the second you find it.
Now, let's say a deal actually survives that brutal investigation process. This is where the whole dynamic shifts. We're moving into steps 4 and 5, building commitment. The focus totally flips from rational analysis to emotional commitment. This part is all about getting every single person on your team completely obsessed with winning. As the leader, your job completely changes. You're not the skeptic anymore. You have to become the head cheerleader. It's your job to get the team so fired up, so full of energy and adrenaline that they can only think about one thing, winning. As Pena says, you're on war footing. But here's the thing, that energy is incredibly fragile. Pena tells this story where, right in the middle of the Bow Valley deal, he made one casual, offhand comment that things looked touch and go. By the time he got back from a trip, that single comment had spread through the company like a virus. The message, straight from the top, was, "We're going to lose." Morale was completely destroyed. And the lesson he learned is so crucial. As the leader, you are the guardian of your team's psychology. You can share the big vision, the excitement, the dream, but you can never, ever share a doubt. Your team looks to you for that confidence. As Pena puts it, they want to stay in a warm, secure pouch, and it's your job to provide it. So now we get to the climax of the whole thing, executing the battle. This covers steps 6 through 10. The investigation is over, the team is all in, and it's time to go to war. For the Bow Valley deal, this meant locking themselves in a room for the final negotiation, a brutal 72-hour hellscape where the whole thing almost died. I mean, just 6 days before this final meeting, the other side had actually walked out. Key investors were starting to get nervous. Tax problems were popping up left and right. Even Pena's own people were saying, "I told you so." By any normal standard, this deal was dead and buried.
And just check out the scene for this final showdown. Pena calls a meeting at the opposing lawyer's office. It's his tiny, scrappy team of 6 people, and they're staring down a corporate army of 20. It's a real-life David versus Goliath, set up around a massive 40-foot conference table.
But instead of being intimidated, Pena just seizes control. He stands up, looks every single person on the other side of that table in the eye, and lays down this incredible ultimatum. He basically locks the doors and declares that this battle ends one of 2 ways. Either the deal is resurrected, or it's totally annihilated. And nobody goes home until one of those things happens.
And what happened next wasn't some polite business meeting. It was a war. For 72 hours straight, they fought, they screamed, and according to Pena, there were 2 actual literal fistfights. But at the end of it all, they walked out of that room with a deal. A victory that he says was born in terrible conflict.
So the minnow swallowed the whale. The deal got done. And this brings us to the final step, step 11, the quantum leap. But, as this chapter makes very clear, every single leap comes with a cost. And this victory, well, it was no exception.
First, let's just look at the numbers, because the result was absolutely staggering. Great Western's assets went from $81 million to $272 million. That's a jump of $191 million from a single deal. This was the quantum leap they were hunting for. But there was a human cost, a very real one. Charlie Soliday, the CFO whose sharp ears started this whole thing, he died from a massive heart attack just 1 month after the deal closed. Operating at this level of intensity under this kind of pressure, it takes a very real and sometimes a tragic toll. And that brings us to the final stark message that Pena ends the chapter with. You can chase that quantum leap, you can go through hell, and you can win. But at the end of the day, you and you alone are always responsible for the consequences, for better and for worse. So, this leaves us with something to think about. Pena's rule is to walk away at the very first red flag. So, I'll ask you, in your own life, what's the biggest red flag you've ever ignored? And what did that decision ultimately cost you? Welcome to The Explainer. What if the secret to massive success wasn't having a great plan, but having a plan with no escape?
Today, we're jumping headfirst into a really radical idea from Chapter 8 of Dan Peña's Your First 100 Million. It's a strategy that's all about engineering a situation where you literally cannot fail.
And this quote right here is the whole foundation of the strategy. I mean, think about that for a second. It's saying that your plan B, your safety net, isn't a smart precaution. It's actually an invitation for failure. The whole idea is to commit so completely to plan A that there is no other option. It's a pretty wild claim, so let's see how it actually works.
So to really get this, we've got to go way back, all the way to 240 BC. There was this Chinese general, Han Xin, and he did something that looked like absolute tactical madness. He lined up his army right on a riverbank, completely cutting off his own escape route. The opposing army literally laughed out loud when they saw this, thinking it was going to be the easiest win of their lives.
Yeah, well, they weren't laughing for long. See, with that raging river at their backs, Han Xin's soldiers knew it was win or die. There was no falling back. So they fought with this unbelievable ferocity that was just born from desperation, and they totally crushed the bigger army. Later, when his officers asked him why he did it, the general said, "Place your army in deadly peril and it will survive." And that right there is the whole idea behind burning the boats.
So you can see the clash here, right? On one side, you have conventional wisdom, the stuff we're all taught. Have a backup, hedge your bets, prepare for the worst. But the quantum leap advantage says to do the exact opposite. You get rid of the safety nets, you burn the boats, and you only plan for one thing, success. Because that total all-in commitment is what actually creates the conditions to make it happen.
Okay, so talking about burning the boats sounds great in a history book, but how do you actually do it? Well, it takes a ton of guts, and that means you have to fundamentally change your relationship with one of the most powerful feelings we have, fear.
There's this fantastic story about T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, that just nails this idea. To prove a point about pain, he once held his hand right over a candle flame. A stunned officer asked him if it hurt, and he gave this exact reply. See, the point isn't about getting rid of the pain or the fear. It's about raising your personal threshold so you can keep operating at a high level, even when it's there.
And this really gets to the core of how high performers think about fear. The book is really clear on this. Fear is not the enemy. And guess what? It never goes away. It's just a natural signal that you're taking risks. The goal isn't to get rid of it. The goal is to get comfortable with it, to let it sit in the passenger seat. In fact, if you're not feeling a little bit of anxiety, your goals probably aren't big enough.
All right, so let's say you've got the internal mindset down. You're ready to be comfortable with fear. Now, how do you build a company, an entire organization around this no-escape idea? Well, it all starts with a simple principle: strategy before structure.
First, let's just be clear what we mean by structure. Think of it as the bones of a company, the org chart, the job titles, the rules, the bureaucracy. It's that fixed framework, the way we've always done things, that all too often just gets in the way of moving fast.
Now contrast that with strategy. Strategy is the complete opposite. It's fluid, it's alive, it's all about action. It's the actual battle plan. It's not some dusty mission statement hanging in a frame. It's the notes scribbled on a whiteboard that can be erased and changed at a moment's notice to hit a target. And this is the absolute golden rule here. The mission, your strategy, is king. The entire company has to be flexible enough to completely reshape itself, change jobs, change rules, change anything to serve that mission. So many companies get this backward, and their great ideas end up dying because they just don't fit into the existing rigid structure.
So we've got the mindset and we've got the company philosophy, but what does putting your back to the river actually look like in a high-stakes business deal? The book shares this incredible story from 1986 that's just a masterclass in how to win on your own terms.
So, to get the financing they needed for a huge acquisition, the team had to project this image of unshakable confidence. So what did they do? They paid a non-refundable fee of $750,000, and this was a huge chunk of their available cash, just to get the bankers to even look at the deal. This was way more than a fee. It was a massive psychological power play. They put so much skin in the game that it became really hard for anyone to just walk away.
And you know what? The bluff worked. Big time. What the bankers had no idea about was that this wasn't confidence they were seeing. It was pure, raw desperation. The team's own bank had already said no. They had no plan B. It was either this deal or they were done. By creating a plan with no escape, they projected the exact power they needed to land an $85 million loan.
All of this, the mindset, the strategy,
it all comes to a head in the corporate combat zone, the negotiating table. And the book argues that you don't just show up to a negotiation. You have to engineer it for a win right from the start. How? By following 5 simple but powerful ground rules. Look, these aren't just about appearances. They're about stacking the deck in your favor before anyone even says hello. You set the tone with suits required. You control the environment by negotiating on your turf. You control the document by writing the first draft of the contract. You control the clock by making sure no one leaves till it's done. And you make sure you're not wasting your time by only meeting with the people who can actually say yes.
Now, the book is super blunt about this next part. It basically calls the whole idea of a win-win negotiation feel-good rhetoric, a complete illusion. Instead, it pushes for what it calls an absolutist approach. The thinking is dead simple. We win and take everything, you lose and get nothing. This isn't about making friends or finding mutual respect. It's about getting everything you came for.
Okay, so you've set the table, you're playing hardball, but then you hit a brick wall. The other side just will not budge on a key point. What's the move? Well, the answer is the ultimate power play.
That's it. You just leave. You get up and you walk out. This isn't some idle threat. It's an action. It sends the clearest possible signal that your position is not up for debate and that you rather have no deal at all than a bad one. And you don't just quietly excuse yourself. No, there's a whole script. It's pure theater, designed for maximum impact. You gather your papers without saying a word. You slam your briefcase shut. You look the most senior person on their side right in the eye and say, "You can reach me through my office." Then you stand up, walk out, and this is the most important part. You never, ever look back. It's a killer move because almost nobody sees it coming. And really, this quote from oil tycoon J. Paul Getty just sums up the whole attitude, doesn't it? The view here is that negotiation isn't some collaborative, touchy-feely process. It's a conflict. It's a high-stakes poker game where the only thing that gets respect is power and the absolute will to use it to win.
And that brings us right back to the central challenge of this whole philosophy. We spend our lives being told to build safety nets. But the question I want to leave you with is this. What's the backup plan, the ripcord, the what-if scenario you're clinging to that feels safe, but might just be the very thing that's stopping you from taking your own quantum leap?
All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking open the playbook on getting funded. Straight from Chapter 9 of Dan Peña's Your First 100 Million. And the big idea here? It's pretty simple, really. You don't go begging for money, no. You master the art of giving lenders the opportunity to finance your dream. Let's get to it. And bam, right out of the gate, the book hits us with this. I mean, talk about setting a tone. Securing capital isn't about being shy or timid. It's about psychology, right? It's about understanding that this is a mutual desire. You've got the vision, the banker's got the cash. You both want this deal to happen. And that is the huge mindset shift we're unpacking today.
So, okay, before you even think about picking up the phone to call a bank, the very first step is a massive change in how you think. This isn't about taking small, safe little steps. Pena makes it crystal clear. Getting financing is the jet fuel for what he calls a quantum leap, and that needs a totally different mindset.
And this slide really breaks it down perfectly. You've got 2 choices. Over here, you've got your arithmetic growth. It's safe, yeah, it's slow, and it's all funded by you. And then you've got the quantum leap. This is exponential. This is the kind of growth that totally reshapes industries. And it's almost always funded with OPM, other people's money. The book is blunt. If you want to grow as fast as humanly possible, you can't tiptoe. You have to leap.
So look, the whole point here is to just get rid of that fear of asking for money. And you do that by drilling these 2 beliefs into your head. First, money is not scarce. It's everywhere and it's just looking for a good home. And second, bankers are not your enemies. Their entire business, their job, depends on lending you money. You see, their money just sitting in a vault doesn't earn them a single dime. Your project, your dream, that does. Once you really truly believe this, the whole game changes.
All right, so you've got the mindset locked in. Now it's time to get practical. Where in the world do you actually find the right bank? This is where the hunt begins, the strategic search for the right financial partner, the one who is basically ready and waiting to say yes.
And this is your prime target. The book has this great term for it, a laydown bank. I mean, just think about it for a second. A brand new branch office has 0 customers and a vault full of cash that they have to get out on the street to start making money.
The manager is under a ton of pressure to make loans and prove themselves. They are, by their very nature, the most motivated lender in town. That is your sweet spot.
So where do you find these guys? Well, the info is actually hiding in plain sight. You know, you're reading the business section, you're flipping through magazines, you're looking at the big financial papers. They're constantly reporting on this stuff. But honestly, the most important thing is just to be on the lookout for announcements of new branches opening up right in your own neighborhood. That's like a big flashing sign that points directly to a potential lay down.
Okay, now here is a brilliant, totally counterintuitive strategy. Do not go to your number one prospect first. Don't do it. Go to the bank that you think has absolutely zero chance of funding you. Why? Because this is your scrimmage. It's your practice round. This is where you get comfortable, where you test out your pitch, and where you get all those butterflies out of your system. You make all your mistakes on the prospect that doesn't really matter.
Okay, let's talk about that first contact. This moment is so crucial because it sets the entire tone for the whole relationship. From the very first phone call, you have got to project confidence and control. Never, ever desperation. So here's the playbook. For maximum impact, have your accountant make that first call. It just signals that you're a serious player. But hey, if you call yourself, be professionally persistent. The absolute key, though, is the framing. You are not begging for a loan. You are interviewing several recommended banks to establish a new financial relationship. And the language you use really matters. You don't need money. You have capital requirements. It's subtle, I know, but it's an incredibly powerful shift.
I mean, this quote from the book just says it all, doesn't it? The whole strategy is designed to completely flip the script. You are the prize. You're the one with the vision that's going to make the bank money. You're essentially hiring them to handle your business. It's a mental shift from being a beggar to being a selector, and that changes everything about how you walk and talk. Now we get to the real heart of the strategy. You see, the power in any conversation and any interview comes from asking the right questions. And these aren't just any questions. These are tools. Tools to qualify the banker, to signal how sophisticated you are, and to keep control of that meeting.
This is your opening shot. Sometimes you ask this before you even sit down. It immediately tells you if you're talking to a real decision maker or just a gatekeeper. I mean, if their personal limit is 50 grand and you need $500,000, well, you know right away you need to be talking to their boss. It just cuts through all the noise and saves you a ton of time.
Oh, this is such a great question. It's so unexpected. It basically forces the banker to tell you what their no looks like. It gives you a direct peek into what they think is too risky, what their biases are, what their hot buttons are. You're basically getting a free masterclass on what not to do when it's your turn to pitch.
You ask this and bam, you immediately put yourself in a different league. As Pena points out in the book, this one single question makes you sound smarter and more sophisticated than like 95% of the people that banker is going to talk to all year. It proves you get how banks actually work and that you're thinking strategically.
And then you hit them with a big one. This is the ultimate test. See, you're not just looking for a one-off loan, you're looking for a long-term partner in crime. This question challenges them. It's basically asking, are you big enough? Are you ambitious enough to come along for this ride with me? It frames the entire relationship around a massive future, not just a small one-time need.
So you've set the tone, you've asked all the right questions, and you've found a partner that looks promising. Now it's time to bring it home. This is all about your presentation and giving them those final pieces they need to feel confident enough to say yes.
Okay, listen up, because this is a huge mistake so many people make. They show up to that first meeting and just dump a 100-page business plan on the desk. Wrong. That first meeting is about one thing: personal chemistry. It's a first date. You're there to sell the dream, to sell the vision. You don't want them getting bogged down in spreadsheets and numbers and forming an opinion before they've even bought into you as a person.
I love this line. It perfectly sums up the whole presentation thing. Dress British just means you look the part, right? Conservative suit, professional, clean. You need to look like you fit in their world, so they're comfortable. And think Yiddish means you think shrewdly, you think cleverly, and you always have your eye on the prize. So you look trustworthy, but you think sharp.
Look, at the end of the day, all the foreplay, the meetings, the lunches, the questions, it's all about making that banker feel comfortable with one simple thing: that you are going to pay back the money. And this slide shows the 3 pillars of that comfort. They need to hear your absolute ironclad commitment to repayment, your promise of more business down the road, and they need to feel your infectious, unshakable belief in your own project.
And we're going to end on this final, really powerful point from the book. You see, getting the financing is never the real problem. The money's out there. The bankers want to lend it. The strategies we've just talked about, they work. The only real variable in the whole equation is the sheer willpower of the person asking. So the only question left is the one for you. How badly do you want it?
Today, we're diving into Chapter 10 of Dan Peña's book, Your First 100 Million. We're going to get right into his super aggressive, no-nonsense advice on how to raise capital. So if you've ever thought that getting your business funded is just, impossible, Peña has a brutally honest answer for you.
And this quote right here, this is pretty much the core of his entire financing philosophy. Look, the money is out there, a ton of it. You've got venture capitalists, banks, angel investors, the whole shebang. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. They are not looking for you. You have to be the hunter.
So if the money is everywhere, what's really stopping most people? I mean, is it a bad business plan? The economy? Is the idea just not good enough? Well, according to Peña, it's none of those things. The real roadblock, it's a lot closer to home. Which brings us to the first and honestly the biggest obstacle of them all. Pena is convinced that the number one thing standing between you and the money you need isn't a lack of cash out there in the world, it's your own fear. Here's his take. After doing seminars for decades, he noticed this weird pattern. Even super successful CEOs are often totally terrified of making a financial presentation. It's not the business risk that gets them, it's that raw, gut-level, emotional fear of being rejected. The fear of somebody looking you in the eye and saying no. So, how do you beat that fear? His solution is painfully simple. You just do it. Over and over and over again. You practice in the mirror until you know your stuff cold. You practice the dynamics, when to pause for effect, when to speak with conviction, even, as he says, when to roar. He literally demands that his students make at least 2 presentations every single week until asking for money feels as natural as breathing. Okay, so once you start getting a handle on that fear, where's the first stop? For most people, it's the most traditional source, the bank. But Peña is adamant that the way you approach a bank has to be completely different from how everyone else does it. And, well, this quote pretty much says it all, doesn't it? You don't just walk into a bank asking for a pile of cash that you need by tomorrow. That's like asking someone to marry you on a first date. It's just not going to work. Nope, securing a loan from a bank is a long-term game. It's a strategic courtship you build over months. And he actually gives you the playbook for this whole thing. You start by meeting a banker and telling them you might need some funding, way down the road, maybe in a year or 2. Then, a few months later, you follow up. Maybe mention you need a little interim financing. See what you're doing? You're building trust and familiarity. So when you finally walk in with your real, big proposal, you're not just some stranger off the street. And you've got to have leverage. Don't have a track record of your own? Fine. Borrow one. Stack your board of directors with people the banker knows and respects. Is your current bank giving you the runaround? Be ready to move your entire business over to their competitor. Peña even suggests taking out small loans and just moving them from bank to bank, just to create a paper trail that proves you're a good bet.
But look, banks are just one tool in your financial arsenal. To really play this game at a high level, you need to understand every single weapon that's available to you for raising capital.
And wow, what an arsenal it is. On one hand, you've got all the different flavors of debt. Loans tied to your assets, unsecured lines of credit, you can even borrow against the money your customers owe you. Then on the other side, you've got the big guns, equity. We're talking venture capital for those explosive growth ideas, angel investors for early stage stuff, and of course, the ultimate power move, taking your company public. But all of those options, every single one of them, really boils down to one fundamental choice, and it's a decision that will absolutely define the future of your company.
And here's that big trade-off. With debt, it's simple. You keep total ownership of your company, but you owe that money back, period. If your business goes under, they're still coming for their money. Now with equity, you're selling a piece of your dream. Your investors are now your partners. They share in the risk with you, but they also get a slice of the reward and a say in how things are run.
And this is where Peña gives a huge warning. Even though he often prefers equity financing, because hey, it puts your investors in the same boat as you, he is adamant about not giving up control. The second you drop below 50% ownership, it's not really your company anymore. You better be damn sure that trade-off is worth it.
All right, let's get into the final battle plan. We're going to do a quick rapid-fire round through the questions that usually stop entrepreneurs dead in their tracks. Think of this as your pre-game pep talk.
This has got to be the number one question on everybody's mind. You run the numbers, you do your projections, and you figure out you need, say, $1 million. So you go in and ask for $1 million, right?
Wrong. Peña's advice is to ask for 3 to 5 times what your spreadsheet says you need. Why? Well, first off, your numbers are probably wrong anyway. Second, it gives you a ton of room to negotiate. And third, weirdly enough, it's often easier to get funding for a big, bold, ambitious deal than a small, timid one.
Ah, the classic catch-22. You can't get money without a track record, but you can't build a track record without money. So what on earth are you supposed to do?
You borrow it. It's that simple. Find people who already have credibility, and you attach your wagon to their star. A respected board, a joint venture with a company that's already established. You are literally leveraging their reputation to build your own.
Okay, here's another classic mistake, getting completely bogged down in the tiny details, especially the interest rate. So many entrepreneurs will fight to the death over half a percentage point.
Peña's take is brutally direct. Just stop it. Your one and only focus should be getting the money in the door. He says if one little percentage point is the difference between your deal working and failing, then your business model has zero room for error and it's probably doomed anyway. Get the cash first.
And this really brings us full circle, all the way back to the beginning. Every time you hear no, every single setback, that's not failure. It's just feedback. It's a lesson. Peña talks about having 2 bank accounts, your financial one and your emotional one. Fear of failure drains that emotional account. But if you can reframe every no as just testing and learning, you protect your confidence. And that is your single most valuable asset.
So we'll end with this. All these ideas are great, but they are completely useless if you don't act on them. Peña's entire system is built on one thing: getting in the room and making the presentation. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. After hearing all this, the next time that question is asked, will you be one of the few with the guts to actually raise your hand?
Okay, let's get right into it. I want you to forget everything you think you know about growing a business. We're diving deep into Chapter 11 of Dan Peña's classic, Your First $100 Million, and we're talking about a strategy that separates the merely successful from the super wealthy. It's called quantum growth, and it's not about climbing the ladder. It's about strapping yourself to a rocket. Right here. This quote is the whole mindset in a nutshell. For the true high performer, slow and steady doesn't win the race. It means you're already losing. The goal isn't just to add a little to your bottom line, no. The goal is to multiply it over and over again. So before we can even think about building, we've got to tear something down first. And that's the modern, feel-good, watered-down idea of what success even is. According to Peña, this whole feeling good approach to success is nothing but a psychological trap. Why? Well, because it lets you redefine failure as something cozy, something acceptable, like harmony or contentment. It's a mindset that praises comfort over massive, world-changing achievement. And in the world of high-stakes business, that kind of thinking is a death sentence. Look, let's just cut to the chase, because that's what Peña does. The argument here is simple. Real success isn't some feeling you have, it's objective. It's something you can count. And in business, the ultimate scoreboard, the one universal measure, is cold, hard cash. Period. All right, so if the old way of thinking about success is a lie, then what's the truth? Well, the answer is something called quantum growth. And this is where we get into the real engine room of how generational wealth is actually built. This slide really lays out the 2 paths you can take. On the left, you've got what most people do, arithmetic growth. It's that slow, painful grind, adding 1 new client, making 1 more sale. It's 1 + 1 = 2. It's linear, it's safe, and according to Peña, it's a slow death. But then over on the right, that's the quantum leap. This is external growth. It's not about adding, it's about multiplying. It's where 1 + 1 = 100. You're not just making your business better, you're making it 10, 20, 100 times bigger overnight. So how do you actually make that leap? The secret is something called the equity transaction. This is the big mental shift. You have to stop thinking like a shopkeeper selling a product and start acting like an empire builder acquiring assets. The fastest way to double your size isn't to work twice as hard, it's to go out and buy a company that's as big as your own. Now, a leap like this sounds incredible, right? But, and this is a huge but, it is not a walk in the park. It comes at an enormous cost. The book calls these the 3 perils, and trust me, they are absolutely non-negotiable. Let's be crystal clear about the price of admission here. First, Total personal commitment. Your deal isn't part of your life. It is your life. Forget weekends, forget holidays. It all takes a back seat. Second, total financial risk. We're not talking about a calculated risk here. We're talking about pushing every single chip you have, your house, your savings, your kids' college fund, all of it onto the table. And third, extreme stress. The kind of pressure that can literally, and I mean literally, kill you. Pena is blunt. This path is not for everyone. And this quote, man, it just sums it all up, doesn't it? There's no middle ground. There's no playing it safe. If the thought of risking it all, and I mean all of it, makes you hesitate for even a second, then this game is not for you. It's that simple. All right, so let's say you're still here. You've heard the risks, and you're not scared off. So, how do you actually find a company to buy? Well, the book lays out a very clear blueprint for your first hunt. Okay, here's your playbook, your checklist for the perfect target. First, rule number 1, stick to your knitting. Stay in an industry you already know inside and out. Don't go chasing trends. Next, look for fragmentation. You want industries full of mom and pop shops, not ones dominated by giants. They are ripe for a roll-up. Then, you got to chase high margins. Low-margin businesses are just a slow, painful way to get rich. And finally, you have to think big enough. The company has to be substantial enough for the deal to actually make a quantum leap. So where are these companies hiding? Well, you can scan the financial news, tap into your professional network of bankers and lawyers. You can even use business brokers, though the book gives a serious warning to be extremely careful there. But you know what the most powerful method is? The direct approach. Just identify the companies you want and contact the owners yourself. And speaking of the direct approach, check this out. This is a template for that first letter straight from the playbook. Now notice the tone here. It's not asking for a favor, it's not begging, it's presenting a credible, serious opportunity. This is how you open doors that are locked tight for everybody else. You know, making that first deal is a monumental step, but the real transformation, the thing that changes everything, that happens next. It's all about evolving your entire identity as an entrepreneur. Once you close that second deal, the game completely changes. You physically cannot be the hands-on manager of multiple businesses anymore. If you try, it's just going to lead to chaos. Your role has to shift from being an operator to being an owner, from a manager to a grand strategist. So what's your new job description? According to Pena, you become a frog kisser. Seriously, your main job is no longer running the day-to-day business. Your new full-time obsession is to be out there, constantly hunting for the next deal, sifting through dozens, even hundreds of possibilities to find that one prince of an acquisition. And this quote from one of Pena's students shows you the end game. Once you've established yourself as a real player, the entire dynamic flips on its head. You're not just hunting for deals anymore. Deals start hunting for you. As Casey Stevenson says here, people in the industry are calling me to buy their stores. It's phenomenal. That right there, that's momentum. So, after all that, this whole explainer really boils down to one fundamental question from Pena's playbook. A question you have to ask yourself. Are you content to just build a business day by day with that slow, predictable arithmetic grind? Or are you built for something else? Are you ready to take on the insane risk, to change your entire mindset, and start hunting for that explosive, life-changing quantum leap? Because according to the source, that choice defines everything.
All right, let's dive in. Today, we are getting into a moment that every entrepreneur dreams of, and maybe even fears a little bit. We're pulling from Chapter 12 of Daniel S. Peña's Your First 100 Million to talk about your grand exit. This isn't just about selling your business, it's about the art of doing it strategically, so it's not an ending, but a launch pad for something way, way bigger.
So you did it. Against all odds, you took an idea and you built a successful, profitable business. You should be proud. But now what? Seriously, this is that fork in the road, that exact moment that really separates the folks who are just successful from the ones who become absolute legends. So what's your next move?
Well, you've really got two paths. On one side, you have what you might call respectable mediocrity. It's not a bad thing. You protect what you've built, you play defense, maybe become a pillar of the local community. It's comfortable. But then, there's the other path. The path of the quantum leap high performer. These are the people who know that success isn't just a one-time fluke. It's a formula. They build it up, they sell it for a bundle, and then they use that capital to start the whole process over again, but bigger, much bigger.
Now, Pena puts it Pretty bluntly, he says you really only have two exit strategies when you boil it all down. You either hold on to that business until you die, or you sell it. That's it. That's the choice. And for a high performer who's looking for that next quantum leap, well, only one of those options is a launch pad.
This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of it. A high performer isn't emotionally wrapped up in their first business. It's not their corporate teddy bear that they need to hug forever. No, it's proof of concept. It's the training ground where they perfected their formula for success, and now they're itching to go apply that same formula on a much, much bigger stage.
So let's talk about this mindset, because it's so much more than just a business tactic. It is a complete philosophical shift in how you see the world, how you see what you build, and honestly, how you see your own potential.
For a high performer, selling is like a graduation ceremony. You're not mourning the end, you're celebrating. It's the finale of one incredible chapter, sure, but it's also the fuel for the next one. The whole point is to liquidate your assets, to turn all that hard-earned equity into cold, hard cash that you can then use to fund your next, even more ambitious, quantum leap.
This quote from the poet Omar Khayyam just captures the strategy perfectly. It's about prioritizing the tangible cash, the real-world fuel, over the sentimental promise of your first creation, because that cash, that is the key that unlocks future empires.
Okay, so you're on board. You're ready to sell. Now comes the $1 million or $100 million question. What's your company actually worth? And here's the tough part. The answer often has very, very little to do with what you, the owner who poured your blood, sweat, and tears into it, think it's worth.
See, in the real world, there are 4 and only 4 universally accepted ways to value a company. These are the tools that any serious buyer is going to use. You've got the asset approach, income capitalization, market comparison, and gross revenues. This is the playbook.
But then, oh boy, then there's the 5th method. This is the one that almost every emotionally attached owner tries to use. It's the here's how much I need to retire comfortably approach. It's based on your wants, your dreams, your personal desires, and the market could not care less. This method, you have to throw it right out the window. It's a deal killer.
Now we get to the fun part. Pena has this brilliant, unforgettable phrase for it, puffing up the hog to take to the fair. It's just a fantastic metaphor, right? It's all about systematically preparing your company, making it look as attractive and valuable as possible so you get the absolute top dollar when you finally take it to market. This is where the real work begins.
And the first step is all about timing. You want to sell when you are riding the crest of 3 perfect waves all at the same time. You need a strong overall economy, a booming industry, and crucially, your company needs to be showing at least 3 years of solid growing profits. The closer you can get to catching all 3 of those waves at their peak, the higher the price you're going to command. Simple as that. Next up, you have to clean house, and I mean that literally. Remember, buyers are emotional people. A dirty carpet, a cluttered stockroom, to them, that screams disorganization and chaos. You need your physical space to be pristine. You need professional brochures. You need an org chart. You're trying to create the powerful impression of a smooth, efficient, well-oiled machine. Okay, let's talk about the financials, because a messy financial house will sink a deal faster than anything else. This is non-negotiable. It means you got to write off that old, dusty inventory, you got to mark down the receivables you know you're never going to collect, and most importantly, you have to get brutally honest about your real profits. You know, for years, you've probably been smart about using tax avoidance strategies to keep your tax bill as low as possible. And that's great. The problem is, while you were hiding your profits from the tax man, you were also hiding them from a potential buyer. And trust me, they will not pay for earnings they can't see on paper.
And this leads us to one of Pena's most powerful and totally counterintuitive strategies. For 1 to 2 years before you plan to sell, you actively invest in taxes. Yeah, you heard me right. You stop trying to minimize your earnings. You pay your full tax bill. Why? So you can get your true, magnificent profitability clearly documented and audited by a top-tier accounting firm.
The payoff for this is just massive. Your company is going to be sold for a multiple of its earnings. Right? So by making that short-term investment in paying more taxes, you are proving higher earnings. And that can result in a final sale price that is multiples higher. It might be the single smartest investment you make in the entire exit process. A buyer isn't just buying your past, they're buying your future. So your job is to make that future look as stable and predictable as possible. Lock everything down. Go get longer property leases.
Sign long-term agreements with your suppliers. Solidify your key customer contracts. The more stability and predictability you can demonstrate, the more a buyer is willing to pay.
And finally, and listen, this one can be tough for founders to swallow. You must make yourself dispensable. A buyer gets very nervous if they think the whole company will collapse the second you walk out the door. You have to build a strong management team, hire a certified CFO, and settle any lingering lawsuits. You need to prove that the business is the valuable asset, not just you. So let's bring this all home. After all this prep work, all this puffing up the hog, it's really easy to see the sale as the finish line, the grand finale. But for a true high performer, your grand exit, it's really just the beginning.
If you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Your company is a stepping stone, not the final destination. You nurture it, you grow it with all your heart, but you never ever become so emotionally attached that you can't let it go when the time is right to take that next giant leap.
And that right there is the ultimate goal. The sale gives you the wealth, the freedom, and the credibility to go after even bigger ambitions. Your first big exit isn't just a win. It's the starting gun for a whole lifetime of quantum leaps. And that's really the question I want to leave you with. A grand exit isn't about cashing out and retiring. It's about leveling up. It's about having the strategic guts to turn one massive success into the fuel for the next one. So, what's your next quantum leap?
All right, let's talk about the final explosive message from Daniel Peña's Your First 100 Million. This isn't just another chapter summary, no. This is the final warning. It's a call to arms. If you've been following along and soaking up the lessons from the book, this is it. This is where everything comes to a head.
And Peña, well, he doesn't mess around. He hits you with it right away. His core message is a straight-up ultimatum. You have a 21-hour window. And this isn't some friendly suggestion. The second you finish this book, or hey, even this explainer, that clock is officially ticking.
So let's treat this as your final briefing, because according to Peña, you've got all the information you need. That's not the problem anymore. The real question, the only question that matters, is what you're going to do in the next few hours. Your personal countdown, it's about to begin.
Okay, let's just get right into it. The book has armed you with literally everything, from how to raise capital to building your dream team. You've officially had your dose of Dan. The formula is laid out. The only thing missing, the one variable that separates you from being just another what-if story, is action. Plain and simple.
But see, before you can take that massive action, you got to tear down the walls that are holding you back. This next part is all about that mental demolition job. It's about bulldozing what he calls doofus wisdom and replacing it with a high-performance mindset.
And this really lays it out perfectly, right? On one side, you've got that doofus wisdom, the you can't do that crowd, the people who wish you good luck because they think it's all a long shot. And then you have the quantum leap thinker who knows that action, not luck, is what matters, and that taking big risks is an absolute requirement for super success. This brings us to the bedrock of that new mindset, a principle Peña actually borrows from President Reagan. When values are clear, decisions are easy. Think about that. If you are totally, completely obsessed with your dream, that hesitation just evaporates. The tough calls suddenly become simple because you know exactly where you're going. So, here's the crucial mind shift. You have to stop thinking of failure as some kind of social disease. Every mistake, every single screw-up is just another piece of data. It is proof that you are in the ring, that you are taking action. In fact, the more mistakes you're making, the faster you're moving. Action is everything.
All right, so we've worked on the mindset. Now let's get practical. Let's turn all of that into an immediate, non-negotiable action plan. This is your checklist for what you need to start doing, like right now, today. Okay, let's break this down real quick. Step 1, act the part. You got to create the perception that you're already there. Step 2, find a mentor, a retired executive who's already won the game you're trying to play. Step 3, start putting together that dream team now and hire for attitude, not just a fancy resume. Step 4, forget about a plan B. Burn the ships. It's win or die. And finally, step 5, the most important one, execute. Follow up on every single thing. And look, if that checklist just seems like way too much right now, Peña boils it down to this one simple command. Do something. Anything. For God's sake, just get the ball rolling. Call an accounting firm. Call a local banker. Use the scripts from the book. Just take one small real-world action right now.
Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great in a book, but does this stuff actually work for people who aren't, Dan Peña?
Well, let's look at the proof, because the results really do speak for themselves. I mean, take Beryl Henderson. She says it herself. I'm not a rocket scientist. She was a registered nurse. But after she started using these methods, her net worth shot up by 300%. She's living proof that this system works for anyone, and it allowed her to leap from small deals to massive ones.
Then you've got Robert's story. His experience really gets to the psychological shift here. He says Peña's method helped him remove the brakes. And isn't that what we all do? We put these invisible limits on ourselves. This is about understanding that your potential is, for real, limitless.
And for so many people, like Tim Cohn, the ambition is there. They know where they want to go, but they just don't have the map. Peña's method was that missing piece to the puzzle. It was the guide that gave him the confidence to make big decisions fast.
And the list, it just keeps going. Candace Knoll expanded her business. Dean Verdee added a cool $500,000 to her cash flow. Martin Heller built a 7-figure company in just 2 years. And then you get to guys like Peter Sage, who co-founded a $15 billion project. The scale is different, but the principles exactly the same.
So, we've seen the ultimatum, the mindset shift, the action plan, and the proof. And that brings us to the end. This final section, it's all about you. It's about the decision you have to make right here, right now. After hearing all of this, you might still be asking yourself that one big question, the one that every single person who feels stuck asks. So what the hell is the answer? What's the secret?
And the answer is as blunt as it is powerful. There is no secret. There isn't some magic formula you haven't discovered yet. You have all the information you need. One of Peña's own mentees said it best. I found out the secret today. There is no secret.
Because in the end, it all comes down to this one, final, inescapable truth. Anybody can talk a big game. Anybody can dream about super success. But the rewards, the money, the life you want, they only go to the people who actually get up and do something.
And with that, we're at the end of the book and the end of this journey. So go on, look at your watch. Your 21 hours. They've already started. The only question left is, what are you going to do about it?